We're headed south with friends and well-wishers waving farewell. We headed out on our newest adventure. Kate chugged along on her little 3-cylinder engine most days, sometimes with a sail to help, others under sail alone. Running sun up to sundown, it's 20 days from Deltaville to Fort Lauderdale at 5 miles per hour. We took 2 months through narrow cuts, canals, and open sounds, sometimes making our way to the ocean's edge. We cut through cypress swamps and open grass marshes where grass grew taller than a man's head. Beautiful, this trip through dark brown waters and unforgettable countryside. In the late evenings we were serenaded by the whine of insects and the singing of frogs, with the now and then whoop of a big bullfrog keeping time. It's great to be here in Fort Lauderdale, the one-time home of pirates and smugglers, and not that long ago. The last pirate was hung at Bahia Mar in the 1930s. As the story goes, it was a grand day with band, picnics, and sideshows. The whole town turned out for the holiday. After pirates, bootleggers showed up, and then it was college kids on spring break. They got in the habit of getting drunk and jumping out of the hotel windows. The newly arrived Europeans didn't like that much, as the falling bodies were making a mess out of the outdoor cafes that they prized so much. These more sophisticated Europeans may not last either. They run around topless most of the time and bottomless some of the time. Without pockets to carry money in, you have to wonder when they'll be thrown out too. This little bathing beauty says the seagulls are going to run everyone off. A prostate camel for some reason. Okay, there's an amateur sand art contest going on, and these are the best of the bunch in my opinion. My hat goes off to me. Thank God I had the good sense to marry this girl. A mountain climber who is afraid of height is surely brave. A mountain girl who is afraid of the ocean but goes sailing anyway is just as brave. After all, it was my dream, not hers. Thank you, Georgine. Oh, good gracious. This is Bahia Mar. It had fallen on hard times, and lucky for us it was. We enjoyed the lifestyle of the rich and famous on a budget. Okay, let's take a quick walk through town and see what the money we spend buys other people. Yep, that's somebody's home. Bill and Julie's sailboat, Colony 2. The proud owners of Colony 2 at the local hotspot Shooters. A good Dutch friend Eric and Julie at the bookstore. My grandson Lenny and his buddy John aboard Cape. I'll place the dinghy up to the dock and go shopping. My good friend Larry, who like myself has happily left Baltimore behind, is looking for a place to bring his boat to. We find ourselves taking a sojourn into the Everglades, a slow-moving river populated by alligators, fish, snakes, and birds. Only the Indians are truly at ease in this sprawling wilderness of water and grass. My daughter Brenda, her husband Dave, Georgine, and I'm behind the camera in the Everglades. This is where I worked, and what a place it was. Someone was either in jail or had fallen in love with a gal from a local bar whose husband was seeing red. There was a cross-dresser who had the habit of standing naked on top of the commode in front of a window while playing an accordion. He got drunk and played drums out in the yard all night, for which he was arrested. One man's car was beat up with a baseball bat. Most days I wondered when someone would burst through the door and shoot the place up. I not only got used to it, but kind of enjoyed the excitement. Julie had sweet tomatoes. Breakfast at Robert's with our favorite waitress, Lucy. We're sure she'll have a joke to tell us. Kim and Ozzie. Kim threw a birthday party for Julie, Georgine, and I. Bill declared himself a couple months older to claim it as his own. We three were gracious in public, but grumbled some privately. It's amazing what a girl will do after a couple of drinks. Bill and Julie hamming it up in a mansion they rented to shoot a commercial in. Bill skipjack pictures in a showing. Hanging out with Bill while shooting a commercial. Here's Kate, fat and roomy for her 35 feet. She made a comfortable home. About twice a week we went to a $1 movie. We dined on popcorn and Pepsi. Popcorn was $5 a tub with a free refill. A movie and dinner for $7 for the two of us. Afterwards it was a trip to the bookstore to read and drink hot chocolate. My brother-in-law Paul, Georgine, and I setting at Snug Haven. When we left Bahia Mar, Georgine went looking for a place to keep Kate and live aboard. She found a marina named Margaritaville, and she really wanted that address. Alas, the price was too high, so we settled for this place, with a beautiful yard towered over by palms and Australian pines. It really had the feel of home. The four of us living on our boats were a mile from the beach. We would walk east on Los Olas Boulevard, then up the beach about 1.25 miles. After exercising with our workout bands, it was back home again. Although not 100% faithful, we stuck with it enough to stay in pretty good shape. Sundown at Snug Haven. A wonderful time of day. We turned up the CD player and stretched out in the cockpit with a glass of wine or a rum tonic. We talked for hours. Bill and Julie sometimes joined us. The conversations were quite lively, sometimes serious and again downright absurd. It was a great time in our lives, and we talk about it yet. Wow, it's Christmas 1996, and we'll be going to the Bahamas in another week. The Christmas parade on the inland waterway, and the water adds another dimension to the lighting and fireworks. With the time to go to the Bahamas approaching, we're doing our final chores. I'm tying up rat lines into rigging. We'll climb this ladder to watch for coral heads in deep water. Georgine and Tina have been buying groceries for some time now. They've been packing them away in every available nook and cranny. This Los Olas anchorage, originally a seaplane harbor, was given to the city with a stipulation that it be free anchorage for boats and seaplanes. No matter, the city charges anyway. The city claims they need the money to pay the harbor masters. Guess what? If they didn't have to collect the money, the city wouldn't need them. Boats heading for the Caribbean stopped here a few days to wait for favorable weather. Kind of reminds me of a small town with a traffic light. The boats go across in bunches. We're anchored at Los Olas Anchorage on the waterway. After taking on 250 gallons of water and 150 gallons of fuel at Bahia Mar, we're all provisioned and ready to go. With the sun setting, we bid Bill and Julie happy farewells with toasts, hugs, and wishes of good luck. Sleep will be hard to find tonight with the anticipation of a big tomorrow. Today was the day we had been looking for. Dawn broke clear and cool with a light wind out of the southwest. With our stomachs full of bacon and eggs, we started the engine and hauled the anchor. Our timing was good. The drawbridge was opening and we passed through with the outrush of tide. Another half hour and we were past the stone jetty at the mouth of Port Everglades, hoisting sail and feeling the slow, steady roll of the Atlantic Ocean. With a gentle turn and a flick of the wrist, the engine gave way to the silence of sail. We were on our way to the first of our destinations, No Name Harbor. With the offshore breeze freshening, we took in a little of the Genoa. As we approached the Miami Inlet, we broke a turnbuckle on the lower shroud, but were able to replace it in Miami and go on to No Name Harbor, anchoring late that afternoon. No Name Harbor, a place of pirates, smugglers, and renegade Indians. And a beautiful place it was. On an eerie moonlight night, one can imagine a sailing ship entering under skull and crossbones, ready to head out to attack some unwary merchantman. I rubbed the hair back down on the back of my neck and ducked under the Dodger to my bunk below. As usual, the first night at anchor was fitfully punctuated by trips to topside checking to make sure we were not dragging anchor. It was Sunday morning. I awoke to the smell of fresh coffee. Tina and Georgine were in the cockpit watching the sun climb to a hand's width above the horizon. After breakfast, we walked to the beach to see distant clouds march north with the Gulf Stream. Tonight we would be under those now and then rain showers. A couple hours before sundown, we hauled our anchor and were making our way between the coral reefs to open water. The engine overheated just as a breeze stirred, so we hoisted sail and I spent several hours in the bilges rebuilding the water pump.
Part of beginning to understand.
The current pushed us far north of our destination while an increasing north wind piled waves high against the current. These were the conditions Kate was built for, so while uncomfortable, they were much to our vessel's liking. With our bow pointing to the open ocean, our stern looked back at Coconut Grove slowly sinking below the horizon.
Like the dolphin who guides you, you bring us beside
Georgine sailing in the glow of Compass Light.
darkness and show us the
First the black of night gave way to a gray dawn and finally a yellow sunrise.
road. We are strangers in your silent world. To live on the land we must learn from the sea. To be true as the tide, and free as a wind swell, joy loving in letting it be. Fly, Calypso, the places you've been to, things that you've shown us, the stories you tell. Hi, Calypso, I sing to your spirit, the men who have served you so long and so well. Hi, Calypso.
Kate romped along before a stiff breeze. Her proud bow sometimes drove deep into the waves. She would rise up, shake off the water, and drive forward again. With Bimini in sight, we left frothy waters breaking over North Rock to our stern. A wrecked ship is always a chilling sight. It's so easy to see your own boat lying in her place, and all it takes is a small error in navigation at night or in stormy weather. We look forward to wandering the lanes of Hemingway's old haunt and swimming in Bimini Bay. Chunks Airlines comes in and out a couple times a day. Those pilots know their stuff. They take off and land among cozy, empty boats. There's barely room for their wings to pass through. It makes you tighten up. Walking down a narrow lane, Georgine, Tina, and I met up with a huge black man carrying a coconut. Want to see something, he asked. Curious, I said yes. He brought the coconut to his mouth and savagely ripped the husk off with long yellow teeth and demanded money. I gave him $3. He demanded $5 angrily. I refused. We went on our way to the ice cream store. He followed threateningly. I walked back to the boat with my pocket knife in my hand, wondering how long I'd have to languish in a Bahamian prison if I had to kill him. Tina and I stopped in and bought a beer. Tasted like beer, but could have been almost anything. The place was pitch dark after being out in the sun. You couldn't see a thing. Late one afternoon, Tina and I walked to Bimini Beach to take sundown pictures while Georgine stayed aboard nursing the ankle she had sprained the day before. During the many months we were living aboard in Fort Lauderdale, there were things secretly going wrong with Kate. We were soon to find them too. We sailed out of Bimini and over North Rock heading to Nassau. Late that night the wind came up strong out of the east with big steep-sided seas running. We could make no headway. We started up the engine and a fuel line began leaking. The banks we were crossing were shallow, so we anchored. On reef main and short and jib, we ran before the wind. It was a wild and exciting run. On this trip, we gained a few dolphin that Tina whistled and talked to. They stayed with us a while, sometimes rolling over to look at her. We spent a week in Bimini working on Kate, fishing, and enjoying the place. Being broke down in Bimini is like being stuck in the mud in heaven. You just wallow in it and stay a little longer. Early in the morning, we headed out to Nassau, about 100 miles to our east. On the following day, we were nearly becalmed, but we enjoyed the slow, leisurely pace, the balmy day, and the warm sunshine. We passed an old wooden boat, also headed to Nassau. She was named Uncle Houston, captained by a red-headed and bearded fellow who only needed a shield and sword to be a truly fearsome sight. We watched them far to our stern nearly get run over by a huge waterspout. We saw the boat suddenly turn toward the spout, and he later said he tried to catch it to get a better look. He was from Alaska. I guess they grew 'em fearless up there. Nassau Light at the west end of the island. This is a Bahamian sloop. Beating hard to windward, she tacked right through a gaggle of anchored boats at night with no running lights or engine. Seems dangerous till you consider they sail more in a year than the rest of us do in a lifetime. We sailed out of Nassau Harbor early in the morning heading south. While crossing the white sand banks in about 10 feet of water, we dodged many coralheads. They show up almost black against the sandy bottom and are easy to see. Good thing, too. To hit one would surely be a disaster. After passing over the shallow banks, we turned hard to port and headed to Allen's. Before we anchor here in Allen's, I want to show you where we're going to be over the next couple of months. Georgetown is our destination, but the islands in between are what it's all about. We'll take about 2 months, but we could easily stay a year. There are thousands of beautiful places to anchor and spend time feeling sorry for the rest of the world. As we cruise these out islands, our single sideband radio proved to be a great pleasure. We talked to vessels at sea, Herb, a cruising sailor's weatherman in Canada, and Bill and Julie in Fort Lauderdale. By way of a phone patch through them, I talked to my sister Dot in Baltimore. That was a thrill for her and us. It's an odd thing to be anchored in such a remote place talking to loved ones 1,500 miles away. We're across the white banks and can now see rising distant clouds. It indicates islands ahead. We sailed in between the islands and Tina was elated. These are the islands. Just what I came to see, she said. We knew just exactly what she meant. Perfect little palm islands studding a beautiful emerald bay. A few sailboats anchored completed a dreamlike picture. These are land iguanas and they live on one island only. They can't swim. Makes you wonder how they got there in the first place, don't it? To sail in and anchor in sparkling waters among glistening islands is a feeling akin to falling in love. I could only think how the first white men must have felt sailing among South Pacific islands. That's Kate sitting between those rocks. These rock piles are navigational aids and are the only aids on some of these islands. A Canadian boat making her way into anchor for the night. An hour later, she's easily riding at anchor. We'll be heading out between these two islands going south to Norman's Cay. It's only about 25 miles, so it's just a nice morning sail. According to the charts, the water's 6 feet deep here. Kate draws 5. I expected all morning to run up onto a sandbar, but it never happened. This plane flew in here one night dropping off drugs and got too close to the water. And it's never to fly again. A drug cartel dealt in drugs from this place and was protected by the Bahamians. One night the U.S. Coast Guard swept in, shot the place up, and hauled the whole bunch off to a U.S. jail. Every building there is full of bullet holes. Their junk pile was a cruising sailor's dream. It held every deteriorating kind of device imaginable. I found brackets to remount my refrigeration compressor in the form of an old metal typing table. This boat is Little Cruiser. She was sailed from South Carolina. Although only 16 feet long, she is claimed to be large enough by her builder and his new bride. Doesn't take much room when you're in love. We've decided to weigh anchor and head off to Wardrick Wells. There is no wind, so it's motoring today. Feels good to be in the deep water of the Sound where running aground is not a worry. Wardrick Wells is part of a National Land Sea Preserve. This building is the Game Warden's office. By the way, this is the first preserve of its kind in the world. It's a swift tide that rushes through here. Tradition has it that visitors should leave something here. We didn't have anything with us that we wanted to leave, though. As we drank our ice water, we said our thanks to our beloved God King. Homemade refrigeration. These coral hills are full of these little potholes, so you have to watch where you put your feet. My guess is this is an old tide mill dam. Somebody's laid a board across there to make a bridge. It's probably only about 6 inches wide, so it looks like a doggone good place to fall in and get yourself wet. There's no trick photography here. That's the true color of the water. This is where we anchored for a few days. I believe this picture was taken from the bow of Kate. It was a long run around to the ranger station by dinghy. I couldn't get her to get up on plane with the 3 of us in her. I convinced Georgine and Tina to lean forward, hoping to get on top of the water. The bow did a nosedive, drenching Georgine. She was mad as a wet setting hen, accused me of doing it on purpose. Using my better judgment, I said nothing. I won't forget the look on Tina's face. We made our way out through coral reefs to open water. In 60 feet of water, we could clearly see the bottom. Just off Daniels Key, we saw the shadowy shapes of sharks below us. We anchored at Daniels Key, but was unable to get the anchor to hold. A huge barracuda claimed my anchor, so I was unable to dive in and pull it into the bottom. We moved on and anchored near Thunderball Cave. This grotto was used in the James Bond movie Thunderball and in the mermaid movie Wanda. Swimming in its interior is, for at least the first few minutes, a little unnerving. Hundreds of little fish nibble at your skin while large ones eye you suspiciously. A bump from a large fish is really unsettling. The grotto is at first dark and threatening, but as your eyes become accustomed to the lack of sunlight, it becomes both beautiful and serene. Looking up through holes in the overhead. Oops. The sailing dinghy is the crew's toy, while the inflatable is like the family car. In it, you can go to the store or go snorkeling and do it at 15 miles per hour. Your shopping range is greatly increased. For just plain fun, sailing the dinghy is the trick. You sail close to anchored boats and everyone wants to talk. It's a great way to meet people from all over the world. And I mean all over. Some of them are from Australia. With the sun dropping below the horizon, we are looking forward to tomorrow's sail. With only the faintest wisp of a breeze, we hoist a stubborn anchor and head for Little Farmer's Key under power. In a short time, the breeze is up enough to sail. A couple of faster boats caught up to us. That's the trouble with a sloop. With our schooner Wolf Trap or the Ketch Osprey, we could always hoist another sail or two to make it a contest. Here we thought we were going to have to hog-tie Tina. A fellow sitting on the rocks was washing a half a dozen puppies while the mama dog watched anxiously. Tina thought he was drowning them. He said he was getting them ready to go to their new homes, but I don't think Tina to this day is 100% convinced. Islands, warm breezes, and naked island girls, that's the stuff that dreams are made of. Kate anchored in shallow water. We stopped in the yacht club to buy a beer and met the bartender, Terry Bain, who is known all over for his Hank Aaron smile. The trip back to the boat under a bright full moon was a little unsettling at first. 10 feet of crystal clear water over a snow-white sandy bottom gave the sensation of floating through the air. You could not see the surface of the water at all. It's a Bahamian beer? Click. So good. Early in the morning when the sun hits the water at a long angle, you can't see the bottom or coral heads. There's a good wide channel out of here, so we left at sunup. I didn't want to arrive late in the afternoon, as seeing the bottom is difficult then as well. We had a good sail in the morning, but motored as the breeze fell light. We arrived at sundown and sailed courses between landmarks with Georgine and Tino on the bow looking for coral heads. We came in the northwest end of the harbor and on down to anchor next to Stocking Island, where we stayed a few days. We wandered all over the island some days and dinghied back and forth to Georgetown on the western shore on other days. During the winter, a cold front moves in about once a week. The winds coming out of the south, warm and gentle, switch to the west, strong and gusty, often accompanied by rain. As they clock around to the north, they die off to some degree, but really lose their punch as they come out of the east. Everyone anchors in a good spot to play, but seeks a protected spot as the fronts move through. You are constantly moving your boat. There were 500 boats in the harbor when we were there, but there is room for 5,000. A lot of boats is not a hardship. This beach is Stocking Island Beach on the ocean side. We climbed the hill to get here from the harbor side. You can walk the beach all day and only see a half a dozen groups of people with 3 or 4 people to a group. Most of the time it feels secluded. It's a pretty good climb to the top of Stocking Island. There are a myriad of paths. Some lead to the beach on the ocean side. Others go to the top of the hill where there is a monument. That's what it's called, but it's actually a navigation aid similar to a lighthouse, except there is no light. The rest of the paths don't seem to go anywhere, so it's actually a kind of a maze. Well, we're standing on top of Stocking Island, looking south, then we'll turn to the west, and then finally to the north. Looking southwest. Here we're looking west across the Anchorage and Volleyball Beach. Looking northwest across Hamburger Beach. These boats are anchored off of Hamburger Beach. We sailed in company with the Green Sharpie for about 80 miles up the Exumas. We outran him in light air, which was really a surprise to me. Termite nest. Hamburger Beach. It got its name from the tiki hut that sells hamburgers on the beach. But you have to wonder about the geckos crawling around in the thatched palm roof. I opened my sandwich to make sure there wasn't one in it. Sun, wind, and waves. Tired girls. What did we do in the evenings? In the evening before sunset, we got the best single sideband reception. We received the weather and talked to distant friends. Before reception dies down, we listen to BBC and the Voice of America for news. After sundown, the local sailboat station starts up. A couple of boats using their FM marine radios gives the weather, then things that people want to sell are advertised. Sometimes stories and radio plays are given. Interesting tourists or people on visiting boats are interviewed, and now and then a Bahamian official will come on to make announcements. In the Bahamas, this is all legal except for selling things, unless you intend to pay the tariff on them. It makes for a full evening. Twice a year on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, come to Junkanoo. From 2 a.m. to 9 p.m., food, drink, music, and a big time. We were still in Fort Lauderdale, but this is what it looked like, according to some who were there. This is Little Cruiser again. She is a Sharpie with a little water ballast to help keep her on her feet. She has been cruised about 10,000 miles from the Bay of Fundy to the bottom of the Bahamas. Dave and Mindy were in the Bahamas on their honeymoon. Her parents worried about them and had a ham call on the radio. I picked up the message and sent it on to them. They called home by way of single sideband on another boat to reassure their folks. In the town park stands this monument to the Family Island race. Georgetown is a wonderful little town. We dinghied there most days to get water, groceries, and walk about town. The people are very friendly and seem to like the sailors who come there. Sailors who want to get drunk and raise hell usually do it over on Stocking Island, where they bother no one. We sailors are natural smugglers. With prices double those in the U.S. due to freight and taxes, it's tempting. While we were there, the people on one boat were caught. There was a row over it, with some sailors taking their side. In a few days it was all over. The boat left the country. Shopping the straw market. Peace and Plenty Hotel, a great place to spend a winter and play with the sailors and the locals alike. This fellow pulling up to the dinghy dock is either coming in to do his laundry or to pick up his wife who has done the laundry. This is the cruising boat race put on by the sailors themselves. We anchored out to watch and wound up right in the middle of it. No one cussed us out, they just went around us. There's no kind of handicaps or anything. Whoever gets there first wins. We thought this fellow was going to run over top of us, but he went on by and passed us to his stern. The skipper of this old boat was well into his 70s or maybe older. He took on a few young fellows to join the race. He did pretty well considering the poor sail handling of his crew. The winner, a racer cruising yawl with no expenses spared. Sure makes a fellow wish he had a boatload of money. Seeking solitude. Come on back, Dad. We'll leave you alone. A food, rum, and concert put on for the cruisers by Georgetown at the end of the winter season. The rum is absolutely frightening. It tastes like jet fuel, and if you had any socks on, it would knock them off. The beach kept wandering back and forth as we walked back to the dinghy that night. Winter-long volleyball eliminations end in the spring with a final tournament. Most of these activities are organized by the cruising wives and daughters. They should organize the world. They do an excellent job. This is organization gone awry, a coconut dinghy race. You paddle over to Stocking Island, gather coconuts, and come back with only one paddle. Whoever gets back with the most coconuts first wins. For their forbearance in putting up with us, and in return for the party on Stocking Island they gave us, the cruisers put on a variety show. It's done in the town park on a stage built for that purpose. The whole town comes for a good time. The shows are well thought out, written, and rehearsed for weeks in advance. There is a lot of talent, and the folks in the show have a great time poking fun at themselves and everyone else. Sea wives and daughters are not the only ones in the show. The men get in it too. It's just that I take pictures of women in boats. Here's a couple of heavy weather sailing pictures taken from the deck of Kate's sister ship Aviakai on a Pacific voyage. Aviakai. We left Georgetown, sailed to Norman's, then to Allen's. After that, back to Nassau. And here's some of what we saw there. This outdoor seafood market is under the bridge over to Paradise Island. The legend is that fish that contain ciguatera poison will not be landed on by flies. I can guarantee none of these are poison. Flies aplenty. This boat is a treasure hunter. The big elbow on her stern is put down into the water, and then they blow water through it to wash the sand away from treasure below on the bottom. I was walking along the bulkhead taking pictures. The guy smoking a pipe said, "Give us each $1 and you can take our picture, and we'll buy us a beer." I said, "Yes," I'll drink one too. "Good, I'll buy 3 beers and we'll all have one." "No," he said, "give him $3 and he'll get 3 beers. If you go buy them, they'll be $2 apiece." I gave him $5 and he came back with 3 beers and $2 change. We sat, talked, and drank together. These retired fishermen live on a boat. They get a retirement check from the government. He said it buys a little food and a lot of beer. The world over old fishing boats are left to die in the shallow backwaters. You anchor it and row away. You don't have to sell, burn, or break her up. She goes away in her own good time. Yeah, it's a lot like retirement. This young lady is standing on the bridge over the harbor. Behind her is Paradise Island Hotel and Resort. The 3 of us are making our way by canal to the resort from Nassau Harbor by inflatable. The water around that dome is an aquarium. You go down inside the dome to view the sea life through glass windows. The ceiling of the dome, or gazebo, or whatever the right name for it is, outside looking down in the aquarium. Well, we're actually in the aquarium. We're walking through a glass tunnel so you can see fish on all sides. It's kind of like snorkeling or diving. Well, holy cow, or mackerel or something. Isn't that the same sharks that were in Thunderball Cave? Gotcha, didn't I? Ocean and beaches at the resort. This is the same Oriental girl that was standing on the bridge in front of the resort. We're sailing home to Fort Lauderdale and all feeling a little sad to be leaving those beautiful islands where we have spent our winter. But we're looking forward to getting back to friends and familiar places as well. To dream of going off to a foreign land, no matter how close, is exciting and wonderful, as is the doing, going, and returning. To savor and tell what you have done and seen, to sit back and reflect is wonderful. So every year older we get, we realize how great it was and still is, and how much better it is with time. From out in the Gulf Stream, we sighted these smokestacks in Port Everglades. I had guessed the north-moving Gulf Stream at 3 knots. It looked like we would make landfall south of Fort Lauderdale, but I was tempted several times to head farther north. I resisted. The guess was good. We went straight into Port Everglades without any course adjustment. Sometimes a guess is better than a second guess. Whether gone a day or a year, it feels good to be home. Not once, even in my most responsible moment, have I ever thought, gee, I wish I had worked that winter.